Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Kika's Ladies Recipe. Let me tell you, the lady we're going to introduce today, if you see it in the supermarket, on the shopping mall, you never would have guessed that she can kick your ass because she is specialized to sell you free lunch, free breakfast, and free dinner and a 4x4 sale. We have Captain Melanie Cagle, Navarro County Sheriff's Office Department. Melanie, thank you very much for accepting to be in this segment. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Susan. Thank you for the invite.
Let's be clear. She was working until 5 o'clock in the morning. She went to work out and she accepted to have this interview with us at noon. That's how she's strong it is. And so thank you double for that.
Of course.
So you are 48. We are the same age, and I feel after reading your resume, then I have done nothing with my life because you have three masters. I don't know how many qualifications, but I want it to be you who tell the story because it wasn't a path of roses and
Yeah.
didn't start easy. You didn't have family who was in the force. You need to go against all the odds and the behavior to keep going and fighting is where you are today. Why don't you tell your story?
Well, it starts out just being raised pretty poor. Um, didn't have a lot of guidance or understanding of what I would have to do when I grew up. I just somewhere always knew I was going to go into law enforcement. I cannot give you a reason why. Did not have any family background of that. Just I don't know. It just felt like that's what I would always do. But I was very slow about it. I took the rocky road. Uh, went through college and didn't quite do as well as I could have. I do much better as an adult, by the way, in the learning field. But as I was younger, I just had a lot of, I think, personal lessons to learn to figure out who I wanted to be. And then I was raised to work hard for everything that you wanted. And so that's exactly what I've done. I've come from factory work and just went into law enforcement and said, let me get my foot in the door. I'm going to be a dispatcher and I'm going to figure out what that's all about.
But in top of all that, you find your first husband who you ended up having a baby and you went from I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna get my master to the wife ends, being a mom, stay home, didn't work, and you ended up working in a factory before you get to the law enforcement. Why don't you tell us that part too?
Okay. Well, I did get married probably younger than I should have the first time. I've only been married twice. I've been married 24 years now to my husband. So we have two children. Uh, back back then, you were just working to work. You weren't thinking too much about the future, just trying to raise your family. But it was always in the back of my mind. And actually, my husband's the one that pushed me and said, you've already started your education. I don't know why you haven't finished. And so, working 12-hour rotating shifts, I was going to college, raising my kids, sleeping when I could. And finally, I got the nudge that I needed, and I opened up the door to law enforcement. I said I still wasn't a peace officer at that point, so I didn't know where to go. And I thought dispatching would be good because everybody that comes into law enforcement says the same thing. I want to help people, and so I fit right into that category. Came right in. Spent several years doing that before I became a peace officer, and then I had to see the other side of it, and things have just went constantly uphill from there.
Like what?
Well, I started out as a dispatcher, 911 dispatcher, and now I'm a captain. Um, over 19 years it took uh, trying to figure out which way I wanted to go. When I was on patrol, I definitely saw a need for negotiation. We spent a lot of time with people with mental illness, even if they don't have mental illness, going into crisis situations and not knowing how to handle themselves. And you cannot go in. I always say, and I hope people don't take this wrong, like an officer with your chest bowed out and expect that to be able to handle everybody. Some people never have anybody listen to them. And I even mentioned this, my nickname when I was on patrol was Counselor Cagle because they would make fun of me because I would spend so much time talking to people, but I really believed in it. And instead of just sending the SWAT team out to handle everything forcefully, the SWAT commander and I, who have worked together since day one, kind of put our heads together and I said, we don't have a formal negotiations unit. someone should be out here talking to these people before we go in with brute force. And he's very much looking at the future, and his eyes are wide open. He is now actually the sheriff. My ex-SWAT commander is now the sheriff. And he is on my negotiation team, actually. So he, having that background of the SWAT and getting trained in negotiations, he was with me 100%. So we created the negotiations unit. I run it, have several members, and then, of course, the Texas Association of Hostage Negotiators. I was a member for years before I got more involved on the regional vice president level. So I've been doing that for a few years now, going out in the region and training other negotiators on how to do this. I train my own team here. I make up my own training. I think the sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want to do, whatever you want to make time for if it's important to you. And being on patrol for so many years and seeing the need for people to be heard and understood and dealt with appropriately without being physical if you can help it, it just spoke to me.
For the civilians who doesn't know how the rank works on the sheriff department and the police department, from a dispatcher who is the person who it's on the 911 deviating where is the near unit to the crisis and who they need to send, to captain. People maybe think like, oh, you go from dispatcher, you go into patrol, and you go to captain. No, you need to study, give exam, wait for the time. You don't have exams every year, sometimes every 2 or 3 years. So you need to wait. It's a limit of back end. So it's not an easy path. So for the civilians, can you tell us how you ended up from dispatcher to captain?
Sure. When I was just in dispatch before I went out to patrol, before I became a peace officer for the state of Texas, I did leave out of there as a corporal. It was a hard decision because I had a very good shift. In law enforcement, you don't get day shifts with weekends off very often, and that's where I was. So it was hard to leave because I went to patrol and went to midnight shift with Tuesdays and Wednesdays off. So
I'm sorry, you did a comment about what is the problem with the midnight shift. Between 8 and noon, people start drinking. From midnight to 5 a.m., what happened?
Evening shift is when they're getting intoxicated, and midnight, they are intoxicated. So it was 2 different levels, which I worked all 3 shifts. I've worked midnights, I've worked evenings, I've worked days. I went through all the shifts during my time, both in dispatch and on patrol. So they were all very interesting in dealing with people, and the time of day does matter as to what they're doing. So when I left out of there as a corporal, I lost my rank to go down to patrolman. I did not go to patrol with any kind of rank. I started out at the bottom. At the time, the highest I could really get, I got extra incentive because I became a training officer for new recruits coming out. So I was tasked with making sure the new ones learned the ropes and understood what to do and how to handle themselves. And then when the sheriff, who was the SWAT commander at the time and over our criminal investigation division, he ran for sheriff, and when he was elected, he approached me with the idea that dispatchers are civilians. They are not trained peace officers. They're not trained in law enforcement. He really had the mindset that if you take what I've learned as a law enforcement officer and mix it with what I knew about communications, because I had 8 years of experience in that, I could probably help my staff understand better what the needs of the officers were. Plus, I started out as a sergeant if I went back. So I'm on that zigzag pattern trying to make my way up. And so I did accept the position as sergeant over communications. And I did that for probably 2 years before I was promoted to lieutenant. And then I was only a lieutenant for a year before I was promoted to captain. So our ranks are corporal, sergeant, lieutenant, and captain. And then chief deputy and sheriff. So I'm pretty much as high as I can go unless I want to be the chief deputy or the sheriff.
You're thinking about it, or you already put your mindset on that?
I say I don't close any doors. I'll say that.
Okay, how many masters and related to what do you have?
Okay, through law enforcement, through the state of Texas, I'm a master telecommunicator, I'm a master jailer, and I'm a master peace officer. Being at a sheriff's office, we do have a jail division. So I became a jailer years ago, just to have that certification and understanding. So as far as me being at the sheriff's office and through the state of Texas, there's no other, I can't go any higher and there's no other certification to get. Now it's just a continuing training hours, which I do have a lot of training hours because I think that's so important. So I do a lot of training, I conduct training, and I attend training as much as I can get to soak it all in.
So that is your part of the sheriff office on Navarro County Sheriff State. Now go back to the hostage negotiator. I always says to people, if you knew how much it takes to get a person who had hostage takers and to make the situation go as well as possible, that is another side, the hostage negotiation, that people doesn't know. That is the barricade. Barricade is when a person want to take their own life. And most people says, why we are paying as a taxpayer so much money to avoid somebody who at the end want to commit suicide. So we have the last year, the higher number of police officers committing suicides for the things they need to deal with, and PTSD is real. So you are they call it like the psychology, the person who can talk to people. So can you tell us what is the role of a barricade in a hostage negotiation, and why sometimes a woman is better or not in that role?
Yeah, there definitely is a difference. There's not as many hostage situations as people think there are. A lot of times if there is, it's family, which those are the worst because it's so emotionally involved and they don't want you there. If it's a husband dealing with a wife and it's an abusive situation and he feels like he has the right to do what he's doing, it's really hard to get your way in because they do not want you there. Barricaded, suicidal. I think what people have to remember is when someone is suicidal, they are at a mental break. They don't understand the consequence of the action to come. And a lot of them don't actually want to do it. It's a cry for help. And so if somebody's actually there listening, and there's a lot of tools that go into it. We wouldn't even have time to discuss all the tools that you use to get somebody to build a rapport with you and to want to talk to you. We do a week-long training through our Texas Association of Hostage Negotiators just to teach people what to look for and how to react. There are some that I know I'm not going to talk to. We've had one guy that I know was ex-military. His wife had left him. A friend had committed suicide. Very, very mad at the world, very upset. As soon as he heard my voice, and very respectfully, he said, I do not mean any disrespect, but I would rather not talk to a female. I had no problem with that because I'm thinking, you're not going to respect me. I don't know what I could do to gain your respect early on enough, but that changes my role to, hey, now I'm the coach. I'm going to hand this other officer on my team the phone, and I'm going to listen to everything, and I'm going to help him say the right things. I don't have to be the voice on the phone. And then there's other times, like a more recent one, where there were several men around, several people in uniform, several apparatuses, lots of things going on, which causes tension, even more tension to an already tense situation. And I know after talking to him, he did feel better that I was a female because there was the differentiation in my voice and my tone than there was anybody else. And I think he needed that. So you just have to know your role, and you cannot be upset when you're not the one. You cannot always be the one in charge.
It's not place for ego when you're working with a team, because another thing people don't know, and I don't want to say it because you are the real hostage negotiator here, how many people is in the NOC, who is the unit, because you're not always even on the same state or even country when you're negotiating a situation, because people think like the movies, are you confronting the people, you go with the Kevlar and says FBI, like, no, doesn't happen. You are on something named a NOC. Why don't you tell us what are each of the roles on a hostage negotiation inside the NOC?
Okay, it varies by agency and resources. Some don't even have a NOC. A NOC is another word for a mobile command, which we do have a mobile command. Best case scenario, we want to set up the mobile command and we want to work out of it. The only people that are going to be allowed in there are going to be the negotiators, the SWAT commander, the sheriff, and the chief. And then we probably would have a security officer at the door just to make sure people could not come and go, because that's our operations center and we need it to be quiet. But there's a lot of equipment that we have that when we utilize a knock, that we can take advantage of. You'd be surprised how many times it's just by cell phone. You might be sitting in the back of a patrol car on the cell phone, taking notes with your partner sitting next to you. You have to be able to, especially in the country, and we don't know where we're going to be taken to, you have to be able to adapt to whatever it is. They never want you to do face-to-face negotiations. It's just not ideal, but you have to be prepared to do them. I've done them. Just out of reason, you had no other choice.
You have a face-to-face hostage negotiation?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I have seen videos on the sheriff department here in Chicago preparing a training, and I see the body cam when they do evictions and when they need to do undercover, and I was sweating and I have my throat like hurting only to see the feeling. I cannot imagine the adrenaline. I guess the adrenaline rush that you have in that moment take away the fear or run or paralyze. You just need to make sure that need to be fixed.
Right. You just have to keep your mind about you and go back to your training. Everything's about the training that you receive. If you follow the training that you've learned, you have a higher chance of being successful. You're not going to be successful if somebody has already made up their mind. There's probably nothing you can do about it. Maybe they just want you to be the person they got the last word to. You don't know until you get into it. Your goal, of course, is to bring everybody out peacefully and not have to have the SWAT team come in. But, several of ours have ended up with the SWAT team having to go in. I think we're very fortunate. We have a very good SWAT team, a very well-trained SWAT team, and they don't go in to injure anybody. They follow their procedures and their training just like what we have. And the biggest fear of people is always, well, if they come get me, they're just going to tackle me, they're going to hurt me, because they see all the videos of you're standing there 1 minute and then you're on the ground the next, and you have a bunch of people in different colored outfits on top of you. That might be the case depending on your actions, but that is never our goal. So if I know it's going to get to that point, because I've had one like that he was just so amped up. I knew that I was not going to be able to get him down. The SWAT team was already moving in, getting in position. And I actually kind of violated some of the rules because I decided just to make him mad so he wouldn't focus on the SWAT team. And so we had a yelling match between each other. But during the time that we were yelling, he wasn't paying attention to the SWAT team that was lining up and coming to get him. They took him down very gently. It wasn't anything like he wanted it to be, because he really wanted a big showing. So, like I say, it's not always perfect. You don't always get it right. Every now and then you say the wrong thing that sets somebody off. You put that down on the list and say, okay, don't go back to that. And then you move on to the next thing. You don't quit because you step back a step or two. You don't ever quit.
I was reading a couple of reports. We both know people on this field, including Dr. Young is amazing. He brings the psychology to inside hostage negotiation. And I was reading that some people who want to commit suicide, they don't have the guts to do it. So it's a phrase called suicide by cops. They trick the police. They have a gun, and sometimes that gun is a plastic gun or is empty, or they provoke a situation where actually they want somebody else to shoot them because they're not able to do it themselves.
Yes.
That's
a constant danger. Now we have had people that say that's what they want, but they didn't really have the means to make that happen. Like I told you, our SWAT team is very well trained. They're not a jumpy group. They're not just going to start shooting because you ask them to or you want them to. It would really have to be a serious situation. We've been in one where a guy threw a machete towards officers. I was very close to that machete. And nobody shot him. And I think it absolutely shocked him, because I think he thought by making that abrupt movement that something bad would happen. And it didn't. And I think at that point when he knew he wasn't going to get what he thought he wanted, Because I guarantee you now, if we went back and talked to him, whatever he was thinking that day or whatever he was under the influence of that day, he's not feeling the same way today as he did that day.
We was talking about a psychologist did a book with the survivors from the San Francisco Bridge, and the people who survived the fall, they said everyone, as soon as they jump and like, oh my God, what the heck I'm doing. And when he interviewed each of them, is the state of mind that I was at that point is not at a state of mind. And I was reading too, and please correct me, because not all the materials who come to civilians is the same material come to you. Women prepare suicide slowly. They can go to the hairdresser and get makeup and commit suicide. Men doing more for an act of frustration, of feeling demoted, and they're more impulsive. So when a man tries to commit suicide, it's impulsive related. When a woman do it, like, oh, I have this plan done for a month. That is true?
I would say that is kind of a norm, but you always got to be prepared for the unexpected. Because I know in the course of being here, I've seen there was an elderly woman that went into the kitchen while her husband was still in the other room, and she shot herself in the head. That is not a normal thing for women to do that. I've also seen where a woman went and killed her husband and her 3 kids. And I would have sworn that it was the husband that did it. And when they go through the investigation, it was her. That's just not a common thing. Women generally do like to be pampered up and pretty. When someone finds them, they want to be found. They don't want to be left there. Men want to do it to leave an impact. They want to hurt you and make sure that you find them and you see exactly what you made them do. Just leave that little bit of extra with you. It's like an emotional thing that they want to attach to you for the rest of your life. But I'm telling you, I've seen it. I've seen just such a variety that I don't know that there's necessarily too much of a standard, not that I've had to deal with. I'm always just prepared for anything. Nothing surprises me anymore.
Only to clarify the people where I want to get deep on the daily basis of your work, so people can understand from the other side, because always says you are on the news only with something bad happen, but no get on the news when all the things that you do to prevent bad things happen. And sometimes people don't understand what is the daily. And how many women are in your division, Melanie?
Okay, as far as ranking position, as far as captain, there's 2 of us that are female. The rest of them are male. There's just not a lot of female police officers at our sheriff's office. There's only 1 female patrolman at this point. Now we have several female jailers, admin, dispatch, but not very many that go out on patrol. Or I'm the only female in our negotiations unit, so I don't know. It's kind of a man's world, I guess, a little bit, but I've always fit right in and been welcomed right in, and I've worked my way. So, and luckily, like I said, I work for a sheriff that we are friends, we are co-workers, and we respect each other. So that makes it so much easier. Like I've really, now he's like the brother I never wanted, and he'll laugh if he hears that, because I tell him that all the time, and I tell people out in the public, because we fight like children. But we do respect each other enough to care what each other thinks. And him being a SWAT commander at the time that I was a patrolman trying to get this negotiation unit started up, there was just a mutual respect there. I respect the fact that he wanted to understand the other side of it, because most SWAT guys don't. They just want to go in, do their mission, and be done. He's just a forward thinker, and he's always one step ahead. And so every promotion I have gotten since patrol has been through this sheriff. So like I said, there's a mutual respect there, and there's so much to learn from each other that I think I'm very fortunate. I try not to look at it as women in law enforcement. It is different, but honestly, you just have to fit right in like everybody else. You just have to kind of be one of the guys. And I think I am.
I don't know how is the law in Texas, but after 20 years, you can retire if you want, correct?
Yeah.
I don't see you doing that. Besides, I don't see you doing that. But if you need to retire at some point, you're gonna need to do it. what part of the experience that you have at least until now you're gonna want to keep training, because your experience and it has been always a correlation, I have the feeling, between the work you do and that work you do, you train others to make the path easier. From hostage negotiation, dispatch, patrol, which one you would like to be training others on?
Crisis intervention, hostage negotiations, crisis negotiations. That seems to be the area that I'm most interested in. I would honestly probably go back to school and try to get higher degree of education. I really like the psychology part because psychology plays such a big part in negotiations. So I would probably focus a little bit on my education and get myself more educated, but I would want to go out and educate others too. I don't know if I would do consulting or what, but I already talked about it. I don't know. They're going to push me around in a wheelchair here someday because I won't even be able to walk. I'm still going to want to work.
I love that. Okay. Every time that I talk to a hostage negotiator and people get bored of my question, I always say, what is easier, negotiate with your spouse and kids or a hostage taker?
Someone I do not know. Someone I do not know. It does not work at home. It does not work at home. Home life, but that's the same reason why we get called into those situations, crisis situations or hostage situations, because it is so personal. You know that person so well that you can manipulate each other. It doesn't
but they
work
know your tricks too.
But
I assume.
Yes,
I assume so many years you bring your work home. It's impossible not to.
Right.
So you start talking like, oh, I did this and this, and I'm sure that more than one you call your kids and like, I have the feeling in my guts he's lying to me. Let's go back and review.
Yes, you can recognize the things, but using the same things you would use at work, it doesn't do as well at home. I'm not saying it doesn't completely work because I've probably used it a time or two and gotten away with it. But honestly, it's easier to talk to someone you don't know just because of the level of training that you have. You have certain things that you know work. And literally, if you can get to that rapport building and just get that ounce of rapport started, you're on the right track. So you're not emotionally invested in it because it's work, it's training, it's education, it's everything that you worked for. So I think it's easier to deal with things on the outside.
2 questions that I always use to end this segment. Any regrets that you can tell yourself today, I wish I wasn't?
Okay, I probably look at regrets a little bit differently than other people. I probably have a whole list of regrets. I can think of things from childhood up till now that I wish would have been different. If I were to name one regret, it would probably be starting law enforcement so late. I wish I had already been in it and had 10 more years of experience than I do now. But honestly, if you look at regrets, they're opportunities to learn. Whoever I am was molded by mistakes and things I did right. So, and the path that I took, everything has led me to where I am now. So it's just a learning experience. I just don't look at them as regrets as much as I had to learn. It was my path. That's what it was meant to be. So I've learned from it and it's helped me get where I'm at.
Melanie, you have a mirror in front of you and you need to pat on your own shoulders as I'm proud of myself for
working hard and not giving up. I work very hard. I do a lot of, we haven't even talked about all the stuff I do at the Sheriff's Department. I'm pretty much the go-to person if they need anything because I tend not to say no. That might be one of my regrets. I don't know. But I want to help people and I want to help the people that I work with. This is my second family. So, I mean, I'm proud of the things that I've learned. I'm proud of the relationships I've built. I'm really proud of the people that I've met. I have been very, very fortunate to be able to do the things I've been able to do.
An advice to a woman that maybe it's a little later, like you start a career on the law enforcement, that you can say that do it. You have a woman who maybe somebody's listening to you, or maybe it's not in the law enforcement careers, and maybe in any situation, what you will tell them to, like, don't give up. Come on, get your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get out your ass of the bed and do it. Don't wait until tomorrow, wait until yesterday.
That's exactly how I feel about it. Don't let whatever's going on in your life make you feel undervalued, because we tend to do that as women. We take on so much emotional baggage from other people and circumstances around us, where it's your children, your spouse, your job. Maybe it's not a career, a job. We tend to hold all that stuff in, and it weighs us down. And I got to tell you, just let that crap go, because you're a smart, intelligent person, and you can do whatever the heck you want to do. So don't give up because somebody makes you feel like you should. And if you want to go into law enforcement at a later age, something like a sheriff's office is a good idea, because there's so many different things that you can do and different avenues that you can go into. Just like me, I had no clue what I was doing when I came in. I just said, hey, dispatching sounds kind of cool. I think I'll try that. I can talk to people. I can answer 911. Turns out I could. So worked out good for me, but it opened the door to everything else. So don't give up.
Captain Melanie Cagle, Navarro County Sheriff's Office. I want to talk to you in a couple of years, because I'm sure I'm going to be saying, Sheriff Melanie Cagle.
Never know.
I'm waiting for it. Thank you very much for being a part of this crazy idea. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Susan.